If you clicked on this video, you're probably just trying to survive yourself. Hi, I'm Daniel Sage, a professional poet, and I have gone through periods of homelessness and also periods of driving a semi-truck. And I have just had a hard time surviving at certain times in my life. And I'd like to tell you a story about my hardest times being homeless and what I did to get out of it, and kind of how and inspire you and how you can keep surviving, because it's getting difficult in 2025. So I was homeless 2 times. The first time I was in Portland, Oregon. That's not such a bad place to be homeless. It doesn't get that cold there. And what had happened was I sent a message to a couch surfing host, and at the last second they denied me or canceled on me. And so, being that I had no money, I had nowhere to go. And I remember I was on a public city bus riding around Portland, Oregon, thinking, what am I gonna do? And so I went downtown, and sure enough, there was a homeless encampment. They had blankets and pillows, and they were like, it's okay, man. Here you go. Just ride out this night, and maybe you can figure something out tomorrow. And I was so grateful. I slept in this street corner, just like little awning area, and it really was not that bad. I didn't get sick, and I had the next day. Was the start of my Amtrak Rail Pass that I had worked for at this conference. So it really wasn't that big a deal. I hopped on a train the next day up to Seattle, where I had a friend, and continued on the journey. But later in that same trip, I was making my way back to Memphis, Tennessee, where I had been living, and you have to change trains in Chicago. So I needed to spend a night in Chicago, and so I thought I had a friend of a friend, and I went over to her apartment. It was this big high-rise in Chicago, I remembered. And I had a bunch of music gear with me, and they were the most snobby, I don't want to say the B word, but they were so snobby. And I asked them, like, can I just sleep on your couch tonight? And they just straight up and told me no. And I just didn't have enough money for a hotel room on me. And I was going to try to show up at like a concert and try to meet somebody and go home with them. But I just got so tired from dragging my music gear that I had with me around that I passed out in front of an abandoned house. And it was cold, and it was one of the roughest nights of my life. I got really sick, and around 6 in the morning, I woke up, and someone on the emergency couch surfing requests had gotten back to me at that time and said, yeah, I can take you in. And I was like, okay. I get back to this guy's house. He's a European guy, really nice guy, and he's been partying all night. When I get there, it's like techno rave music at like 6 in the morning, and I'm like, hey, thanks for having me, and we both pass out, and I woke up the next day sick as a dog, and he was so kind. He let me ride it out for 3 days while I was there. And I am just so forever grateful for him. And if it wasn't for him, I don't know what would have happened. And that goes to show you that when you're just trying to survive, what you need the most actually is the kindness of a stranger. The compassion of a stranger can go so far when you are down on your luck. and you're on the verge of being homeless in a strange place you've never been. This was, of course, when I was way younger. I was a touring musician. I think I was like 19 or 20 at the time. And it was incredible to learn just how hard it can be for homeless people. How one night being homeless can wreck your whole week. And I just think that, if you're trying to survive, you got to think about stuff like that. You got to be smart. You can't be going out and sleeping in the cold because you might get sick. And then if you get sick, what then? And, sometimes you just need to think real and just make as smart moves as you can. If you know that you're getting close to the end of a housing situation, you got to have a plan A and a plan B of where you're going next. And of course, having money helps. But I wouldn't say it's actually even the most important thing. Because you can be homeless and have $500 and spend that on 3 nights of a hotel room and just be out homeless after that. So, you gotta really invest in community and friends, and that's how you survive, through the kindness and the generosity of others. That's the only way I've ever found. Because ultimately, every meal I've ever eaten was grown by a farmer who showed me kindness. And every house that I've ever slept in, except for the one that I built, even the one that I built has been bestowed upon me by the kindness of a carpenter. So, we have this illusion, I think, that we can be and go it alone. We have never been more dependent on each other than now. People are more addicted to technology, would be so lost without it, without knowing how to grow food, how to build houses. That's how you survive. You learn how to do those things, how to be self-sufficient. And one of the things you can do is go work trade at a place that's trying to do that. Go to an eco-village that's trying to build housing or grow their own food. That's the best, because who knows how much longer the dollar is going to be worth anything anyway. We don't even know that, I got my typewriter out here. That's how I actually survive. I wanted to bring that up. I've been a public poet now for 3 years, just whipping out a typewriter on the street, writing poems for people, letting them pay whatever they want. I'm so grateful for my friend, my best friend, who taught me how to do that, because, it's true what they say. Give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, you feed him for the rest of his life. And I know how to fish now. And I know that just by calling myself a poet and getting my typewriter out, I can go and generate wealth almost anywhere. And knowing that has been the saving grace for me the last 3 years. Besides going out and building my own house in the desert of New Mexico, that's a really nice thing to have in your back pocket. I'll say that. Worst case scenario, you call a friend and borrow $500 to go back to your house, then everything's okay. Mostly, we lose it when we don't have housing. We're not able to survive when we don't have housing. That's one of the number one things. But also, food and emotional needs. We need to take care of ourselves in many ways. Mental health, and there's so many things that you can do to take care of yourself. I get the free health insurance through the government and food stamps and all that, so that really helps me. And that's a big reason why I'm surviving, because I have a free therapist I can go and talk to every week that's paid for. I have health insurance. I have about $286 per month in food. That has helped me so much in surviving, and then going and doubling that at farmers markets when you can. Not a bad deal. So that's how I've been surviving. And it really doesn't have much to do about having a job, because jobs are a dime a dozen. You'll make someone else rich, and ultimately you have no security, because especially if you were making somewhere like $20 or less an hour, you do not have security. You're not able to get any savings, and all that time that you spent working at your job, you weren't putting into community development, developing friendships, developing connections, so that when times do get hard, you have those friends to call upon and sleep on their couch for a week. There's so many other ways to survive than we've been taught. And I would say that it's something that I'm really good at. I can survive in many different ways. If you put me out in the wilderness, I can survive. I'm an experienced backpacker. If you put me into a situation where I need to build my own house, I know how to do that. I know how to grow food. I know how to live in community and lean upon community and put down my pride and my ego. That's how you survive. Multiple streams of income, multiple friends that you can call upon, layers upon layers of security, and true wealth, not just money. Money comes and goes, and the way the world's going, who knows if it's going to be worth anything tomorrow. We have no idea. It is not backed by gold. So when you're dealing with a fiat currency that someone just made up on a computer, you got to have other forms of security. That's how you really survive. And I have struggled with this at times. It hasn't all been sunshine, rainbows, and roses. I'll say that. Being a public poet, you still got to deal with street people. People who curse you out. You got to know how to defend yourself physically. You got to have many skills. Try to focus on getting more skills. Self-defense. How to shoot a gun. Hate to say it. How to grow food. Because ultimately, I think that a lot of people that end up not surviving or becoming homeless or struggling like that, it's a mental thing. They're not taking care of themselves mentally, and they're forgetting about some sort of resource that they have access to that would have prevented them from being in that situation. They forgot that they had a friend in such and such city, and they could have spent their last dollars to go over there and make the situation better. They forgot that they have skills in carpentry. They forgot that 10 years ago they used to work a job as a cashier and could probably get that job again. They're forgetting. They're just forgetting that abundance is the pervasive stasis of the universe. It is permeating everything that you are, that you touch and create. When you become a creator, you stop becoming a consumer. And all you're doing is generating wealth. That's all you're doing. It may not come at first. Your YouTube videos, they may not get hundreds of thousands of views at first. Don't expect that. But if you stick with things long enough, if you persevere, if you have true grit and determination, you can survive. You can survive anything if you're adaptable, willing to learn, and ultimately you love yourself. Because when you love yourself, you have more inspiration to act and show compassion to yourself and the needs that you have. You have a need for housing. You have a need for food. Showing compassion to yourself is learning how to provide those things for yourself. Not necessarily showing up to a job and making someone else rich. I'm not advising that. If you can make it, you can create it, and you can live in any kind of world you want to live in. We have the opportunity to live as Americans so many beautiful places. People forget America has all these territories too. Virgin Islands, Guam. People forget about Hawaii and Alaska, Puerto Rico. You can go to any of the lower 48 states. You have so many options. If you're an American, it's ridiculous. We live in the land of milk and honey, people. We have an opportunity that most people in the world don't have. They would die for what you have. So know that you have it easier to survive than anyone else. You just gotta want it.